fundamentally, in my opinion, what makes a great public speaker isn't about how amazing a storyteller they are. It's important. It isn't about how clear their message is, which is fundamentally important. It is about how they show up and are they being authentically themselves and are they speaking from the heart. If you can do that, you're 90% of the way there. The rest is all like optimization. So I can give you all the optimization in the world and clarity and structure and how to tell a story and how to simplify with the story. All the techniques I can discuss. But if you strip it all away, why do people connect with certain individuals? It's because of this. They're being themselves.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the AUD podcast channel. We have a very special guest with us and a dear friend of mine. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Luca Allam. Luca, welcome to the show, man.
Whoa, yeah. How you doing, mate? Thank you so much.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Really, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today.
My pleasure.
What I wanted to talk about today, Luca, is public speaking and more importantly, communication, right?
Okay.
So, guys, for the people who don't know, Luca has a podcast called Luca's Inside Track, which is a fantastic podcast. Please make sure to check it out. And you work as a public speaking coach and you do a lot of speeches on stages and whatever. And one thing I've realized is communication is becoming more important than ever. You know, I have a communication coach and she tells me it's the currency of the future. And I 100% believe her, especially as we're moving towards AI and more automation. You being able to communicate and sell yourself is just becoming 10 times more important, right? But before we deep dive into all of that, Luca, for the people who don't know you, why don't you give all of us a little bit of background about yourself and we'll take it from there.
That's a great question, but it's a very difficult question to answer in a very simplistic way. Tell me about yourself. Many facets. If you were to ask me 6 months ago, I'd probably describe myself in a different way. If you asked me in 6 months, I'd probably describe myself in a different way.
Fair.
I'll tell you, what do you need to know and what do the audience need to know? I was someone who worked in corporate for about 20 years. And I was doing quite well. I was running a media agency. And in order to be successful as a CEO, you need to be able to have a clear vision and articulate it. You also need to know how to speak to clients, how to manage your team, how to manage shareholders, how to manage media suppliers, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
So communication was always part of my weaponry, if you like. I left corporate 2 years ago. So at the time of recording, it was pretty much 2 years tomorrow, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
2-year anniversary.
Happy
Thank you so much.
founder anniversary.
So I decided to leave the corporate world, marketing and media, and do something that I generally love doing and feel that there's a real need for. So you can describe me, if you like, as a communication coach.
Yeah.
You can describe me as a podcaster. You can describe me as an event speaker. And I guess you could describe me as an author. So I'm working on a book.
Okay.
As well. So there's quite a lot of stuff going on. But look, it's a weird space. I think at the core of who I am and what I'm all about, it's just about connection. So whether you're working in corporate or whether you're in a podcast or whether you're on stage, even when you're writing a book, it's about how do you connect with the audience. And I think at the end of the day, I'm someone who tries to connect as best I can with whoever is listening or whoever's on the other side.
Yeah. And to your point, I'm very excited to hear about the book.
I haven't written it yet.
I know, but the idea is there. Exactly.
It's
Yeah. So what I wanted to start off, Luca, is this. I think one of the biggest things I learned working with my coach when it comes to communication is that it's not necessarily, yes, there's a way to stand, there's a way to speak, there's a way to connect. But I learned that communication is more about how you think.
Okay.
That's where it starts, how to think, how to build a story, how am I going to connect with the audience.
Yeah. And
I think that's something that people sometimes might miss or not pay enough attention to in the public, speaking communication space. So what are your thoughts around that?
Look, I don't want to, first of all, I don't want to say anything against any other communication coach out there.
Sure.
I need to tell you, I'm someone who's applied 20 years of my experience in corporate as a CEO and now as a podcaster, and I've sort of created my own curriculum. So it might be slightly different to other people's out there. I can only speak on my own truth and what I know. What I know is that the most important thing is this. In the history of great presentations, no one has ever said, Luca, I loved slide 14 and how you structured the points. Those bullet points, that rule of 3, I loved it. No. The content doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's how you deliver it and deliver it from a place of your heart. Deliver it from a place of real passion. And I'll talk about passion in a bit, but fundamentally, in my opinion, what makes a great public speaker isn't about how amazing a storyteller they are. It's important. It isn't about how clear their message is, which is fundamentally important. It is about how they show up and are they being authentically themselves and are they speaking from the heart. If you can do that, you're 90% of the way there. The rest is all, it's all like optimization. So I can give you all the optimization in the world and clarity and structure and how to tell a story and how to simplify with the story. All the techniques I can discuss. But if you strip it all away, why do people connect with certain individuals? It's because of this. They're being themselves.
Yeah.
And they relate to that person being actually, that they may not be the best public speaker, but they're speaking from the heart. And that's all you can do as a human being. And I think that's what connects. So it's always the presenter. It's never the presentation.
I like that.
There's a guy called, sorry to interrupt, there's a guy called Albert Morabian, and he talked a lot about the theory of what a great communicator is and what goes into it, the components. And he said roughly 7% of the contribution of what makes a great public speaker is actually the words that they use. The rest is body language and your tone, and your tone coming from a good place.
So to that point, if there's a lot of optimization techniques, right, but connecting from the heart is the key thing.
Passion, yeah, having passion.
The question that I started to ask, because I can imagine us telling people, yeah, speak from the heart. But like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I know I'm speaking from the heart? How do I know I'm being authentic? Because it's when you want to speak from the heart, and usually that means coming with a sense of vulnerability to connect, is where I'm like, maybe not. You know what I'm saying?
Let me give you my recipe of what is passion. Passion can be achieved through one of three ways. The first way is through real purpose and belief.
Okay.
Imagine Martin Luther King standing up on stage. He wasn't showing vulnerability. He wasn't even showing that much drama with his delivery. There was some variation in his tone. There was some variation in his pace. There was some gesturing in terms of body language. But where his passion came from, his real source of truth, was his purpose and his belief. There are other ways in which you can show passion. That way is through vulnerability, like you mentioned. There's a very famous, if you haven't watched it, there's a very famous address done by Emma Watson to the United Nations Assembly. It was a few years ago, and she was talking about...
I remember seeing something like this,
when she was basically telling her own story about when she was younger, that because she was Hermione Granger in Harry Potter, at a very young age, she was being sexualized by parts of the media. And she opened up about that. And that was real vulnerability to let the entire audience, in this case the United Nations Assembly, in. That for me was real passion. And then the third way of showing real passion is the drama, bringing the variety, bringing the differentiation. Barack Obama is a fantastic orator because he brings tone variation, pace variation, body language variation. So passion can be achieved either through purpose and belief, vulnerability, or real dramatic delivery. If you can do all three, that's the gold dust.
Okay. So to that point...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's the passion and the belief is, I guess, your guiding light and I guess the foundation on which you build everything else, right? The tone, the pace, everything you talked about.
Yes.
But what I've realized is, and I actually had a public speaking coach on my podcast a while ago, and we were talking about, I'm like, when people get on stage, they get that, that stage fright, those nerves. And I told him sometimes just sitting and like pointing at the camera, no one's in the room, there's no one around, it's just me and the camera.
Yeah.
Also is almost, he's like, that can be even more challenging, but I've never understood why. Do you know what I'm saying?
Look, I think what I try and teach, what I try and coach with my clients, I have to say my clients are quite senior level people. They're running organizations, they are prominent politicians. When it comes to, I understand everyone will have anxiety. It's called glossophobia. So glossophobia is basically the fear of public speaking. 75% of everyone on the planet has glossophobia.
Wow, it's that high.
In fact, there's a stat that says 41% of people are more scared of public speaking than death.
That's insane.
It is. So 3 out of 4 people are scared, right? Nearly half, right, are more scared of that than actually doing the actual dying.
Yeah.
But there are ways in which you can reduce some of that anxiety. And this is what I try and focus and teach and coach my clients. The first one really is understanding the audience that you're speaking to. And there are, look, I don't want to give away my entire curriculum, but there are many variables at play.
Okay.
There's always a real agenda at play. And there is always understanding the human perspective at play. So if you can combine, right, what does the audience want, the human perspective? All right, if you're on stage, what do these 100 people want from you? What are they really looking for? Understanding where they're coming from is part one. Part two is all the variables at play. How many of them? What's the profile? What time of day? What's the location of this meeting, et cetera, et cetera. The third one is actually, what is your real agenda? Why are you on stage? And what is their real agenda? If you can figure out the context, you've got a lot of great foundational work that you can build on.
Yeah.
Then it's about, okay, fine, I know my context. How do I reduce my anxiety further? And look, I've worked long enough, and I've done enough presentations and I've opened for comedians, in fact, and I've seen them backstage, what they do. I've taken 12 tips from different people, how they overcome their own anxiety, okay? Ranging from visualization exercises to breathing exercises to how to rehearse, and everything in between. And what I can tell you is that this can help, but if you have a fundamental psychological issue and challenge, I would require you to do some inner work, and it's not necessarily down to someone who can teach you or coach you how to be a better communicator. The really deep-rooted issues of having the spotlight on you, I tell my clients, I cannot give you that psychological solution. I can give you all the practical tips and approaches about how to reduce anxiety. But I would always recommend them to see someone else.
Given all your experience, you've done this for so long, so many presentations, like, even at the top level, even now with the podcast, you're speaking all the time, right?
Yeah.
The question I think about sometimes is, because I've started doing some of that stuff too, emceeing, speaking, moderating, so I'm like...
Just prompted me to have water.
My question is, do the nerves ever really go away?
I like getting nervous.
You like getting nervous?
I like getting nervous because it shows that I care. I care enough that I want to make a connection with someone. So if I'm having a guest on my show, if I'm getting nervous, it's because they're a high-profile guest and I want to nail it. It shows that I still care about what I'm doing. Yesterday I was in an event. I was doing a live video streamed interview in front of 500 people. It was a hospitality event, and I was a bit nervous because I can't make a mistake. It's live streamed. I've got 500 people there, and I've got a guest who I've only met very briefly one time. So it's good to have nerves because it shows that you care. It's about how do you make sure that the nerves do not control you, but you can still control them, and that's where the practical tips can come into play. Knowing your audience. Look, I teach 7 modules, okay? And then I have, like, my session is a bit different, but in the foundational modules that I teach, understanding your audience is the first barrier.
Okay.
Once I know exactly what you're looking for, what your agenda is, all the variables of today's podcast recording, who my audience is who's going to be watching or listening, I can tailor my approach and have that confidence that I'm going to be able to land the key messages because I know that context.
So the point you made about catering to the audience is it was such a big unlock for me, even personally, because I guess from an outside perspective, until I got into the space, it was just go, present, know what you need to say, just say it right, and everything will go well. But if you don't cater it to that, I can be speaking Arabic to an audience that is all like Chinese, as an example. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Look, we worry and obsessed about our own story, our own content. The reality is the audience don't know your content. They don't know your story. So you're obsessing about your slides, you're obsessing about making sure you don't make any mistakes. All the audience wants to care is if they feel that they're being spoken with. They're not being spoken at, but they're part of it. It's a dialogue. The relationship between a presenter and an audience has to be symbiotic. It cannot be a one-way.
It's a two-way dialogue, right?
It has to be. You have to get engagement. You have to have interaction. You have to include them. They need to see you and feel you and understand you. You need to be relatable. You cannot be relatable if you're keeping them at arm's length. In the history of communication, if you keep someone like this, they're never going to warm to you, ever. No matter how good your story is, it's dead inside. You get me? People have to connect. And like you mentioned, right, correctly so, at the beginning of the episode, in an age of AI and tech, there's never been a more important time because the differentiators now are your personal brand.
Thank you very much.
It's how you speak. It's how you communicate. And people are realizing this more and more, that they have to kind of, you know what? My job's at stake. Let me start working on my brand. It's the right thing to do. But it's about not falling into the traps like everybody else. I try and coach my clients to never speak the same way as someone else.
Okay, interesting. Could you tell me more about that?
There's a whole session that I do, which is a discovery session.
Okay.
So I have foundational session, which is giving them all the knowledge, the 20 years that I have, into 3 hours. It's intense.
That's intense, yeah.
The second session is a discovery session to figure out who they are as a person. What are their brand characteristics? So we do mirroring exercises based on the point of view of other people in their lives to determine what are their brand assets And then how do we then make sure that we deliver the need states of the audience, whether it's your family and friends, they're an audience, your clients, they're an audience, your team are an audience, and the audience itself is an audience. So you take the brand assets and the need states, you combine them together to provide that anchoring statement that gives you a North Star direction on how your tone should be, how your pace should be, how your body language should be. And that's always unique to the individual. So that's what I love the most about what I do, is I try and liberate people to being themselves, not having to copy someone else.
I love what you said, that I never considered, like, for example, family and audience or friends and audience. I think subconsciously when we think audience, we think like an audience or for a podcast, an audience for an event, but an audience is just could be just a conversation.
You're an audience.
Exactly.
The people in the room here, the production team, hi guys, they're an audience.
Yes.
They're all part of it.
Exactly, yeah.
Every time you open your mouth, if you're speaking to someone, there's an audience there.
Yeah.
And you need to be consistent. So one of my biggest bugbears is me and you know each other.
Yeah.
Okay? We know each other quite well. Let's say I then see you presenting at an event and I'm not seeing the real Khalid that I know. You're not being yourself.
Yeah.
That inconsistency tells me that you're not yet comfortable with the audience that you are speaking with, and you're still working on that as a development. What I try and coach my clients, I'm sure you know, I'm not speaking from your behalf, you're a fantastic speaker. But as an example, what I try and coach my clients is no matter who they speak to, keeping that consistency, being themselves throughout is fundamental. So imagine if everyone described you in 1 or 2 words, it tells me that your brand is very, very secure and you're owning that brand. Then you can start being authentically you and speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about right at the beginning. That passion, speaking from the heart, is the most important thing for a presenter.
I'm curious from your experience working, with your clients and stuff, and obviously the first session is the foundation, you give them all the tips and tricks, but what's interesting to me is the discovery session. Yeah. So I'm curious.
People cry in my sessions.
Well, there you go. So what have you learned, I guess, about people through this process?
Yeah, everyone, look, it's about how they see themselves. So all I do is ask questions, and they just talk. And everyone has a very, very negative view on themselves. They are their own harshest critic. Very few times people have a higher opinion of themselves than how other people see them. So we're very hard on ourselves. And I think what I try and do is I try and coach them to see a different side to them, how you can be positive. I'll ask a few questions. They might give me a neutral or a negative answer. And then I'll say to them, right, how can we make that into a positive? What's the positive word of that? And we go from there to try and build it. So that's the common principle, the common piece of insight I've seen across all my clients. The other one would be is that they have the aha moment. When we finally finish it and they find their anchoring statement, they're all like, that's it. And I tell them, if it's not an aha moment, it's a work in progress. So they keep going. And it can take an hour, it can take 4 hours, it can take 3 days, it doesn't matter. Because that statement is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Yeah. Clients that I'm dealing with are in their 30s or in their 40s or in their 50s are well established. They should know who they are. And I try and set them up for the rest of their life. They never have to change their anchoring statements or how they approach things. So it's kind of like, when you have like a bicycle when you're a kid, yeah. So kids, right? You get them on the bicycle and they've got the stabilizers.
Exactly, yeah.
They start with the stabilizers. Session 3 and session 4, we just remove the stabilizers. And then I just want to see them just go on by themselves and get more and more confident. So they all don't have that much confidence. They all don't see themselves in the best possible light. But they are all very clear on who they are, who they want to be. And that's the most rewarding thing. Yeah. Honestly, Khalid, I can't tell you how good my job is sometimes when I get a message from someone or a voice note that they've aced the presentation, that they feel so good, they feel free, that they can finally start to present how they've always wanted to. Honestly, man, it sounds cheesy as hell. It's the best feeling.
No, it's so good. It's so fulfilling to see someone helping someone become the person they want to be. Yeah. And it's very interesting to me I agree with you that I think sometimes we don't think about it enough how hard we are on ourselves. You've even told me many times, like, stop being so hard on yourself. Yeah. So I'll call that out too. Yeah. It's so people come to you, they have the aha moment. Once you understand who you are, I think it also gives you a level of confidence, like internally. And I think that's how I always say that it's the way you talk to yourself internally that will reflect how you speak, externally. And to your point earlier, it seems like through this process that they work with you, it's not therapy, but there is a element of that, you know what I'm saying?
There are triggers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you just zoom out for a while, Also, change takes time though, right? So they might implement the sessions, everything you're talking about. They might have one thing, okay, two. From your perspective, because I think communication is an ever-evolving thing. Like how we're speaking now might not be how we, like you said earlier, speak in 6 months.
Variables have changed.
What have you seen, I guess, with clients in terms of time frames? Is it usually some need a lot, some need a little, or because it's an ever-evolving process as you as a person as well?
Yeah. So what I don't do, which is financially not that smart, is I try and give them only 4 sessions every client, and each session is 3 hours, so 12 hours. That's it. And I try and say to them, look, after 12 hours, you've got everything that I know, you've got your anchoring statement, we practice and practice and practice. Now it's on you to practice yourself and start doing it. Sessions 3 and 4 that I have with them, we just practice everything they learned in session 1 with their anchoring statement and their directional prompts, time and time and time again with the content or the keynote that they have.
Gotcha.
So I don't try and prolong it because I don't want to be seen as a crutch for them. I want to try and empower them as much as I can to go out and, like the stabilizers, remove them and go off. It would make more financially sense to like keep them for longer and all that kind of stuff. But I want to get them in and out. And also, these guys are senior. They don't have all the time in the world.
Exactly,
so, you know, we're working sometimes weekends. We'll do late nights, sometimes during the day. But it's like we hammer through it. And I tell them, let's not do it one every 2 weeks. No, we do one session minimum once a week. Ideally, 2 sessions in a week. So we finish everything in 2 weeks. Okay. So the recency, the behavioral changes can start taking account.
You're trying to ramp that up in a short amount of time.
If I did the first session a month ago, they'd probably forget all the foundational stuff.
That's a good point.
So it's really important to combine recency with that kind of like full throttle approach. And I don't try and keep them on longer than I need to. If they want to have additional sessions because they've got a big keynote, they want me to help structure, I'll do that. Happily.
So bringing it back, one thing we touched on this at the beginning of the conversation, we're going to dive into a little bit more now. I love how you talked about personal brand because I think that's so important. And the point you made about personal brand is people think your personal brand is when you are alone, but you can build a personal brand while you're working with someone. People's perspectives of you should be consistent. You know, like you said, every single person, if everyone's saying the same thing about you, then you've done a good job. But sometimes it might not be the brand you want to build either. But I still think communication is an undervalued space. Like in terms of the importance of it. You mentioned earlier in the conversation, it is picking up. Because even in the conversations I'm having, people are like that word's coming up. You're seeing it on LinkedIn. You're seeing it's entering the space and for good reason. But I think one of the missing unlocks that doesn't complete the sell of communication is your ticket to make more money. It's your tool for growth. And I think when you add that leverage or complete that circle, people will get probably a lot more interested in it.
Yeah. So session 3, absolutely. Session 3 and 4 is where they give me their material, right? So we apply it into their own world. They want to ace a presentation. They want to ace a keynote. And then when they get the feedback off the back of it, that's where they start to see the value of it, and other people can see it as well. So applying it to the real world is fundamental. Look, the reality is, I hate to say it, people are losing their jobs because of AI. It's going to continue to happen. There are going to be cuts going into throughout 2026. I mean, it's New Year. I don't want to start on a downer. There will be more cuts this year. AI will take more jobs. The reality is, what do you then do with that? Do you create new jobs? Or do you try and create your own brand as a company? And I believe we are companies. We're all companies. We're the P&Ls. We are the CEOs of our own life. But we just don't act it. We allow others to run our lives. We allow others to decide how to live, how much money we should be making, what cars we should be driving. Everything is dictated. And I think if you start to see yourself more as a brand, a company, not a brand, a company, treat yourself like a company, like a business, right? Stop relying on other businesses because at any moment they could go. And the payoff long term is massive.
Absolutely.
If you keep waiting and waiting for handouts from other people, staying in the corporate life, look, corporate has its place, but it's going to shrink. It's not going to grow. There's going to be more and more startups. There's more and more entrepreneurs. AI has created so many new different types of avenues for making money. If you treat yourself like a business from now, rather than waiting 6 or 12 months, you'll have quicker returns on that investment.
100%. And building on that point, I like that you said look at it as a company, because when you start looking at it it's funny how when you look at things from a different lens, how much your approach changes and how much your mindset changes, towards that. I heard once that everyone everyone now has their own media company, you know, and you're a podcaster, so like
I used to work in media as well.
There you go,
so
exactly.
Very apt, yeah.
I'm curious, because you do speaking and you have the podcast too, but those are two completely different communication channels. Have you found during your experience now as a podcaster, it's been I think 2-3 years now, has that
less, mate? It's been a year and 9. When this comes out, a year and 9 months.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Only a year and 9 months.
March 2024 we launched.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So has your experience as a host improved your communication skill, for example, when you're on stage, or are those two completely different mindsets? Because you're catering to audiences in both.
You know your audience. Again, it goes back to the fundamentals. All the variables are different, right? What is the real agenda at play? And ultimately, what is the human point of view? Like, if I have a guest coming to I film in my home.
Yeah.
What's their perspective? What are they looking for? They want me to take care of them. They want me to make them look good. They want me to make them famous. I don't know, whatever the case is. But the audience, if I'm doing a keynote or a presentation, what do they want? They want to be engaged. They want to feel listened to. They want to be motivated, inspired. It's a bit different, right?
Yeah.
Also, the variables, there's more of them. The more people you have means you have to change your narrative. I can't speak to you in the same way I could speak to 100 people. My speech has to change. My language, the narrative, my storyline has to change. So that's just one variable.
Yeah.
That's just number. Imagine now no one understands the world of podcasting.
Okay.
And I'm speaking to 100 of them. Now I have to change my entire story, let alone my language. So the variables at play, understanding your audience, through that, understanding what the real agenda is, what they want, what you want, and understanding the human perspective, that means I have to take all that information and I tailor my communication.
Yeah.
But I do it in my own authentic way.
And I think that's such an important point, and you touched on it earlier in the conversation, is I can give you all the tips and tricks, but you have to create your own, you have to take the bits and pieces you like, whatever, and form your own thing that you're comfortable with and that resonates, you know, with you. So let's say we've laid the foundation of understanding the audience, the mindset, who we're going to speak to, whatever. Now I want to talk a little bit more I want the audience to help the audience talk about structure. So now, Khalas, we've done all this. We know who we're talking to, whatever, but now how do I build that story?
Talk about storytelling.
There you go. How do I build that story?
Can I be honest?
You can.
I'm not a fan of how many people have their own viewpoint on storytelling.
Okay, interesting.
It's really not that complicated, but we like to make things complicated.
Okay.
A story is simple. A story has a few basic components. It has a start, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
A story has a villain and a hero.
Yes.
A story has a key message, and a story gives hope at the end. That's it. That's a story. What's your key message? What's your start? What's your middle and your end? How is the hero going to beat the villain? And how do you then give hope to the people that are going to be listening? That's a story.
What other viewpoints on storytelling have you heard that you don't like, that you think is like complicated?
It's just, I don't want to diss anyone.
No,
Everyone's got
yeah,
their
but
own
it's just
approach.
your perspective.
Look, anytime tells me, I was looking for a little bit more in a story, then you haven't set it up properly. The build-up wasn't right. So one of the things I teach is language for memorability, and I talk about the rule of 3, okay? The rule of 3 is a way to build pattern recognition in the shortest amount of time and with rhythm. So if I did a line from here to here, and I just drew it as a straight line, you don't know if that's a trend. Okay? If I had a third data point and they were all straight, all of a sudden you can now to create a trend in the shortest amount of data points.
Okay.
You can't create a trend with just 2. When you're creating, for example, even with a comedian, they have the setup, they build up the anticipation, and they deliver the punchline.
Yes.
It's always done in 3. So if your story isn't clear or great, it means that you haven't tackled the stages correctly. The build-up wasn't good enough. The start wasn't good enough. The conflict resolution, right, or introduction of the hero wasn't clear enough, and there wasn't enough hope towards the end. And they try and add in the complexity, and no, you need more of this and less of that. No, it's just, for me, like, start how you finish. So there's a bookend theory where I have. So whatever your key message is right at the beginning, tell the audience at the beginning what is your key message. They're not going to care. But if you take them on the right journey, by the end of it, they'll care about your key message because they've seen them go on this journey of a little bit of anxiety, and then gradually get built up to feel everything's going to be great. So people try and bring in like too many of this throughout. They'll try and bring in complexity at the beginning, just try and sound smart. They'll build in unnecessary chapters. They'll look beyond the rule of three in their structuring approach.
Well,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I understand that. What I found in my experience, working with my coach, and you touched on it earlier, is I like how you keep things simple, start, middle, end, hero, villain, hope, very simple, very relatable, very understandable. Now, on the surface, yes, that is a simple process. But I've learned in my experience of trying to do this, simplicity is complicated. And recently I was at a show, Bassem Youssef was doing like a private show or whatever, and I asked him a question. I'm like, how many times do you practice, like how often do you practice your material before you do it? He's like, Khaled, I've had stuff that I've been practicing for 5 years that I'm performing now. And I've had stuff that I practiced for 2 months. But when he said 5 years, that's what I'm talking about. Like it's, you have the structure, you have the framework, but to make it simple, clear is hard. Simplicity is complex.
Yeah, look, I think one of my biggest, this is what I know myself and what I'm good at. I'm very good at seeing the bigger picture and finding that red thread that can just remove all that stuff. Imagine you've got these knots, okay? I love to undo the knots and just straighten out that line. I'm very good at it. That's one of my strengths. I have a lot of weaknesses, but one of my strengths is being able to see complexity and make it as simple as possible. And I do a lot of work with that with the clients. They'll give me these decks that are 50 slides long. I'm looking, I don't know where the key message is buried somewhere deep. There's no real villain. There's no real challenge. There's no real sort of tension driving the content. So I try and okay, what's your key message? What is the approach? What are you trying to say? And then I take a few things and we just kind of work it out together. I think I like doing that. I have this weird thing where I love to just make the simple things out of something extremely complex and strip it all back. So when I was in media, all I did was pitch, trying to win clients, new business. And you think about all the things that a client's looking for. But more than anything else, they want to be able to understand your value proposition. And they can only do that if it's simple.
The why, basically.
And it can only be simple. It can only be simple. So every slide, so what? Why would the client care? So what? So what? Is your key message big enough? Is it sexy enough? Is it gonna inspire them, win them? Okay, are your challenges, they sound like, will they build enough anxiety? Or are they really basic challenges?
Yeah.
Are the challenges there questionable, or actually they're actual fact-based, that they cannot disagree? Because again, if you start your meeting and you say something in the first 5 minutes that is actually debatable, you've lost the client. So I try and say every client, start simple with facts as undeniable, so you get the client to start nodding, build that tension throughout, and then all of a sudden you've got them agreeing to everything that you want to say.
Yeah.
So,
could you share a story? I'm curious, because pitching, I think a lot of people here listening to this are probably pitching for presentations, for whatever. Could you tell me a story of when it didn't work out and why, and then how you took that into like the next meeting and it worked out? Because I just had this experience. Like earlier this year, there was a client that was going to sign, didn't work out. But then I had my communication coach. We touched on a few things, adjusted, and then I got the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing jumps out, but what else? Look, I worked about 20 years, give or take, in corporate. I was involved in 80 pitches.
80 pitches?
Yeah. Throughout that period, around 80 pitches. I personally led around 40 of them. Okay.
Okay.
The pitches that I won had everything. They had the delivery, the technical, but they met the commercial requirements, and we had the relationship. Okay, we were working the relationship. Sometimes you lose business not because your story wasn't good enough. It just means you weren't satisfying the client demand somewhere else, outside of the meeting room.
That's interesting.
In the meeting room itself, it's a big part, but it's just one part of trying to win a client. Why would a client give you their business based on how amazing you did in 30 minutes or 60 minutes? No, clients these days are smart. They want to see the story, they see the value proposition, then see, does it tie up with their resources, with their other clients that they work with, some of the case study work that they've done, the awards that they've won, the commercial benefit that they can bring. So you really do need a 360 solution. But what I would say is the commonality of when we did get feedback on the technical, it was because it was too complicated.
Too complicated.
Yeah, look, when a client is doing pitches, you're not the only one they're going to be going and pitching. The same day, they'll have 3 or 4 other agencies or people come in, right? And they're just sitting there, this uninspired, listening to the same stuff. And then like by the 300th slide that they've seen that day, you're expecting them to understand what your value proposition is? No. You've got to make their job super simple. Tell them right at the very beginning, what are you going to bring to the table? What is your key message? And then how do you then deliver it?
So it's very interesting that the technical side is where things might have like gone off, and you're right. I think something we don't think about is there are other people that are presenting, other people that are pitching. There's competition. So now let's say we've done the pitch, but now I'm about to go on stage. All right. Mm-hmm. I know my audience. I know that. But now, and this has been the through point throughout our conversation, is being authentic and speaking from the heart. How do I do that? Like in terms of like, how do I present and convey that emotion to connect? Because that's something from my experience, listening to and watching you, that's what you do very well. But I'm always curious about the how.
Like I said, so do you have purpose and belief, or are you showing it through vulnerability? Okay.
One of those two.
And then the dramatic delivery. Okay. So the tone variety, the body language variety, and then also the body pace variety. So the speed in which you're delivering. But to get to that point, you need to have a motive. So what I try and teach my clients is, everyone has a motive. Imagine you're presenting a report in your office. You can't get passionate about a report. I mean, if you can, that's great. But what I will teach my client in the context is, if you're a competitive person, see that now as you're presenting a report on how you're going to become number one in the market, how you're going to beat your competition. This report is giving you the blueprint for success. Okay. This is and then you sort of tap into that business motive of being competitive. And there's also personal motives. So a lot of people in Dubai, they have families back home. They have a job because they want to provide for their families. So their motive is mainly driven towards doing well so they can save enough money to help the people back home. That's a real personal motive. So in life, we can draw on personal or we can draw on business as your motive, and then channel them into either purpose and belief, into what you're doing, or vulnerability, and then ideally with a lot of dramatic delivery, which is what I also teach as well. Yeah,
so looking at it from those areas, we have the drama, we have the belief, and we have the pace as well. What I start to think about is, and I think a very important point that you mentioned that I think you need to be clear on before you get on stage is, what's my motive here too? What's their motive, and what am I trying to get out of this?
What's your real agenda?
Exactly. Yeah, why am I doing this speech? Why am I speaking here? Yeah. What am I trying to get out of it? And you touched on this earlier about personal branding. So working with my coach, this was also a big like slap in the face unlock. She's like, Khalid, you're doing a lot of things. You're doing the podcast, you have the business, you have the MC speaking, you have all that stuff. But she's like, Khalid equals question mark. Is Khalid the business owner? Is Khalid the podcaster? She's like, you're doing all this work, but you're spread so thin and it's not driving to what you want, for example, to move the needle for your business. Mm-hmm. So figuring that out has been quite challenging. And one of the hardest things actually is, she's like, you have to make a decision. Because you decide what you want people to know you as. Yeah. You set the brand, right? And took a while to make that decision because I felt like, if I take this decision, then I can't do this. She asked me, for example, she's like, would you be willing to not do your podcast for 6 months and do this? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. But I think...
Because you love what you do.
It's
so obvious.
I do. But this is the thing. I think making a decision and understanding, looking at the personal branding part, what I want to be known for can be quite challenging. Because we want to be everything, but you can't be everything.
I don't want to comment on you. I can only speak my own. But look, going back to starting with what you said about why are you there on stage? Just imagine you're on stage. If your real agenda is to not mess up and do an okay job, you will deliver an okay job. But if your agenda is to make a real significant impact in that particular environment and create a name for yourself, if that's your real agenda, then you need to change your entire delivery approach to meet that objective. Okay. It's when you mismatch, like, I want to change the industry, but then you deliver something that will never change the industry. Not because of the content. Again, who cares about the content? It's how you believe in it. It's how you deliver it. And it's how you show up with this. So you've got to make sure that if your real agenda is something, then you're everything that you do is geared towards delivering against that real agenda. Yeah. Going to your point about what can you do, what can't you do, what shouldn't you do, I can't comment. All I would say is that if you feel that there is a real way that you can bring together what you love so much and how to make money in a long-term basis, then keep doing as much as you can.
100%.
I'm spread thin. I'm similar to you. I've got a lot of little things going on, but I love all of them. And they're all me. It doesn't mean that, again, 6 months, we had this conversation, something might have changed. But as we speak, I'm really happy with what I'm doing. And I haven't said that much in my life, if ever. I think that's actually one of the first. I'm really happy with what I'm doing.
And it's interesting, this is not the answer you gave me earlier this year when we had that
variables
conversation.
Change, It all change. The next time we speak, there'll be more variables
of course,
that change.
Of course.
I think, and look for those signals. Recognize that growth. And look, I've done my own therapy. And I mentioned this to you, I think, before. It's kind of coincided with my change in my life and what I want to do. But I'll tell you, man, like, it's the best thing I ever did was to try and free this thing up. Best thing I ever did. Still not there. Still not fully. It's always a work in progress. But, man, like, I sit in this chair, I feel I know who Luca is.
You feel
so
good.
when I go on stage, I can be me. I'm not trying to pretend. When I was in corporate, I had to live under a logo that wasn't my logo. I had to abide by a certain number of rules that weren't my rules. Especially as a CEO. You're even more limited with what you can do and what you can say. So I feel liberated. So I'm trying to take that same liberation feeling and give that to my clients with public speaking and demystify the fact that you can't be a great public speaker. What is a great public speaker? I'll reiterate. Someone who speaks with real passion. How do you get passion? Business motive or personal motive? How do you show passion? Purpose and belief. Vulnerability or dramatic effect and delivery. All three is the winning recipe.
And building on what you said about your time, about your time, as CEO of the media company, and I love that you said it was under someone else's logo, not mine, and now you've crafted your own logo, your own brand. Exactly, which is exactly what you're doing. I had a guest on my show recently. We were talking about leadership, and he asked me,
who was it? Can I ask?
His name is Samir GP.
Okay.
So he wrote a book called "What Makes You a Manager Won't Make You a Leader" in the age of like AI and tech. And he said one of the key differences between a manager and a leader is not just a mindset and skill set, obviously, but it's their ability to communicate. So as a leader, when you're at that stage, I think one of the big problems I hear, and you've lived it, so you know even more than I do, most people here, especially leaders, are terrible at communicating down to their teams. It usually comes from the wrong place and from a wrong mindset.
So I would, yes, but I would also say that people don't leave their job because of their leader. They leave because of their manager.
Exactly.
And they leave because of their manager doesn't know how to manage them, how to communicate, how to manage their expectations. So I don't think communication is exclusively important just for leaders. It's as important for the managers. It's for everybody, man. It's not. Again, I wouldn't put it in a structural system. You've got to be able to learn how to communicate. And that includes listening, understanding, knowing yourself, knowing the context, and then delivering it in the right kind of way. And I think, are there leaders who don't have great communication skills? Absolutely. Are there managers who don't have great communication skills? Absolutely. But they both need work. And I think we're just scared. We're like, have you seen this where you just have, someone really well, and then you see them in a corporate setting or managing it, they just become a different person.
They're
not allowed. They feel they're not allowed. The other thing is, when, let's say, I learned this recently. If my boss presented in a certain way, and I was the second person in that meeting to present, if they presented in a down way that wasn't that engaging, I would feel a little bit uncomfortable stealing the limelight from my boss.
Okay.
So I had to downplay my own brand to fit in. It meant, because I did that, the person after me is going to follow that same trajectory. So we are also kind of very much restricted by who we are around and by a hierarchical system. That's why, for me, it's not just leaders, and it's everyone, man. The people who are getting the job interviews, they know how to they need to communicate verbally as well as unwritten.
So you touched on that. I love how you say communication is not hierarchical. It is for everyone, top down, up right, left right. It's such a core thing. And building on your point about the manager-leader discussion, what he taught me was a manager is task-driven while a leader is people-driven. That was a key distinction that he made. But I want to round off our conversation, Luca, with this is a very important point that we haven't talked about yet when it comes to communication is this. Two things. Number one, communication is a dialogue, so it's a two-way street. But most importantly, it starts with listening. So if I came to you and I'm like, hey, Luca, how do I become a better listener? What are you going to tell me?
In podcasting, if when you ask a guest a question, they answer. Give it a few more seconds until you speak. They might say something else, right? And it's that silence. You're just waiting for a little bit longer. They might feel they'll need to share something additional. I think there's so much gold dust in that. Look, listening isn't just through your ears. It's through your eyes. It's through your body language. It tells me everything. If you're feeling comfortable with me, are you feeling closed off? Are you feeling open? Are you giving me a lot of eye contact? If you're not giving me eye contact, maybe that's your personality, or maybe it's because you feel something else towards me. So listening isn't just it's not a one sense kind of approach,
Very interesting. Never heard that before.
Yeah, and I think also we all suck as listeners.
Yeah.
We could all be much better, let's be honest.
True.
I don't want to say it, but I think women are better listeners
100%
than men.
100%.
I don't like to generalize, but I think that's one that I would put my hat on.
I would too.
And I think listening is an art form. I think as a podcast host, you'll know this better than anyone else, is allowing that person to feel comfortable so that they can share. So also, listening is about how you make that other person feel. That's empathy, man. That's providing a place they can't be judged. You're not going to bring pre-bias into the conversation. You don't want to sympathize with them. No. You want to give them the space so they feel that they can share. So, you've got to do a lot of work as the listening person to make them feel comfortable that they can share. And that requires a hell of a lot of EQ and patience.
Yeah.
And self-awareness without bringing in your pre-conscious bias.
And so first of all, I've never heard someone talk about listening in that way that you were saying it, and I'm like, what? Like listening on my ears, whatever.
Yeah, I just made it up.
But it makes a lot of sense, because it's not just about what you're saying. Yeah. It's all the other factors that I'm taking in, that's paying attention to you, how we're listening. You know what I'm saying? One last thing, two more questions to round off our conversation. One, you touched on it just now, which is, I think, very important in communication, is empathy. And that's something that is... there's a big empathy deficit, in the world.
It's high demand, but little supply.
Exactly. How do we build the supply?
You surround yourself with people that have empathy. So you choose your friends in a better condition. So process of osmosis. The more people around you that give you that space to feel not judged, who want to help in the best way by just listening. Get as many of them around you as possible. You will feel better. And the ripple effect should be that you'll try and then do that for other people, because you understand and appreciate the importance of it.
It's contagious.
Yeah, look, I think talking about it is important, but you just got to try and practice it in your own life. Otherwise, it's just all theory and it stays up at 35,000 feet. I like to try and then apply stuff into the real world. So I've removed a lot of my friends out of my group. I haven't told them, oh, by the way, I'm removing.
But
I just
internally.
I just haven't followed up, because I'm like, is this person bringing out the best in me? Do they have my best interest at heart? Will they not judge me? If I tell them I'm writing a book, for example, I want to feel confident in the space that I can share that news without feeling like, oh my God, they're going to judge, 100%. So apply it within your own world to make yourself feel as comfortable as possible, and then hopefully you'll start being able to realize and share that with other people.
And I think that's such a important point to round off the conversation about the people around you. The people around you also touches on everything we talked about today: the communication, the empathy, the storytelling, all that. And the better people you have around you, the better you're gonna get at all those things.
Yeah, being human, man.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
So, Luca, our final question is a question we ask all our guests. So our message with this podcast is that success comes in many forms and that learning never stops. Now, I know at the course of your career, you probably learned 10 million things. But I always believe there was
You would think.
Yeah. I always believe there's what I like to call a game changer learning. Something that broke the glass and you saw the world in a completely different way, whether it was personal or professional. If I asked you, what was that for you, what would you say?
It's a great question, but man, it's not easy to give you an answer. It's not easy because you're asking a very, very profound question that really tries to encapsulate my 43 years. Okay, I would say something along the lines of, from a very young age, we've been controlled. We've been told to get educated, what to be educated in, what to wear, what to eat. Everything has been conditioned to us. What I'm realizing more and more is that we have a choice. We have a choice to decide how we run our own life, and not to be told that we need to go to school, go to university, get a job, get married, have kids, save, die. You have a choice how you want to live your life. I'm married and I have 2 kids. They were opt-in moments. I decided to leave corporate. That was an opt-out moment. I've decided to do something for myself that I love, that I believe in. That's a double opt-in. And I've realized that I have a choice. And it was only in the last sort of 6 to 12 months that I've realized that we decide our own life, man. No one decides our life. That's my insight.
I think that's a very profound insight. You know, listening to... sometimes what I love about doing this is you know things, but until someone says it in a certain way is when it like lands. And when you said we're conditioned and built in a way that there's a structure to our lives. These are the steps you have to take, check mark, check mark, check mark. And if you don't do that, you fear a failure or whatever. But like you said, it is a choice. And the choice doesn't have to be at this stage. The choice can be at any stage. But it's having the bravery and self-awareness to make that choice that it all comes down to. Luca, my man, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and for our second interview. It was even better than the first time. You've gone better. I've gone better. I really love the conversation.
You look better as well.
Oh, yeah, I know. There's a suit in this one, yeah. I just want to say thank you so much, man. I'm sure anyone listening to this, whether personal, professional, young, old, whatever, this is the communication/public speaking playbook. It's yours, guys. Enjoy it, and I hope you learn from it. Luca, thank you so much, man.
Mate.
To everyone listening, thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Take care.